Anatoly Moskvin, was arrested in Russia after authorities discovered 26 dolls in his home, which were unveiled to be young girls he had unearthed, mummified, and adorned. This disturbing story comes from a real case in the year 2011 in Russia. The increase in grave robberies was becoming more pronounced, and the authorities could not explain such events. Every week, destroyed and looted graves and with no apparent connection. Anatoly Moskvin was born on September 1st. He was born in the Soviet city of Gorky, now known as Nizhny Novgorod, where Anatoly Moskvin started exploring cemeteries during his school days, often with friends, focusing on the Krasnaya Etna Cemetery in Leninsky district of the city. Moskvin was employed at the Institute of Foreign Languages as a philologist, linguist, and polyglot fluent in 13 languages. He gained recognition in academic circles for his numerous publications, including books, papers, and translations. Additionally, Moskvin occasionally pursued journalism as part of his professional endeavors. In 2005, Oleg Ryabov, a colleague in academia and a publisher, tasked Moskvin with the assignment of summarizing and cataloging the deceased in over 700 cemeteries spanning 40 regions of Nizhny Novgorod Oblast. In his personal life, Moskvin led a secluded life. He never married or dated, preferring to live with his parents. He abstained from drinking alcohol and smoking and is purportedly a virgin. With a considerable number of grave robberies, the police decided to contact a professor who had a PhD in Celtic studies. The professor called himself Anatoly Moskvin, and he contributed to investigating the sightings until one day the police visited him at his home. They discovered him carrying a bag of bones from the cemetery, but they did not suspect him because Anatoly was a historian. The police never imagined what they were about to find. A case of grave desecration turned into a disturbing and unimaginable event. The scene was terrifying. Several life-size dolls were carefully dressed on the sofa, on the chairs, and on the floor. Both the smell and the strange appearance of the dolls increased the curiosity of the police. When they examined them closely, they discovered something chilling. The apartment was covered with shelves with books, colorful children's clothes, and toys. The children's items aroused the police's suspicion, because why would a man without children have these things in his house? It turned out they were not dolls, but something much worse and more terrifying. They were mummified bodies. What they discovered when entering his house was horrifying. Many dolls dressed in many dresses everywhere. In the hallway of his house, they could see dolls dressed in very colorful outfits, some in wedding dresses. For some of his dolls, he applied lipstick and even makeup to make them look alive. For over 10 years, Anatoly had visited cemeteries at night to dig up graves and unearth corpses. He took them to his house and modified them. Several times, and the bodies he couldn't modify, he returned them to the graves, embalmed the bodies, rubbing them with salt and baking soda. Once they were dry, he filled them with rags and dressed them in girls' clothing. The chilling details of his pastime had come to light. He had made wax masks for the mummies and drew their faces with nail polish. He confessed that sometimes he dressed them up to have tea or celebrate their birthdays. He even installed certain mechanisms to make them speak because he wanted them to look more realistic, although he claimed that he had no sexual contact with his dolls but tried to give them eternal life. None of the people who knew him noticed any strange behavior. He was quiet, did not smoke, did not drink, or consume any drugs, and was just a reserved man. Anatoly was asked to explain his macabre fascination with mummies during the investigation. Then he recounted that at the age of 13, he had lost a friend he cared about too much. On his computer, they could see the searches he made, and that's how they found instructions on how to turn the unearthed girls into mummies. He kept a photographic record of all the graves they looted to keep them identified. Before the police began to identify the bodies, they received a call from a woman who had seen scenes from Anatoly's apartment and had recognized one of the mummies. It was Olga, her 10-year-old daughter who had died a year earlier. He was diagnosed as a schizophrenic person, so the court declared him not guilty and sent him to a psychiatric clinic. Before the trial ended, he left a message to the parents of the girls. "You abandoned your daughters in the cold. I took them to my house and told them." The crimes of Anatoly outraged the entire country, and the families were devastated. After burying their daughters for the second time, the mother of Olga expressed, "He brought fear and panic to my life. Still, I can't believe the sick perversity of this guy. My daughter lived with him for a while, and I had her since birth." The arrest followed a long-running investigation into the desecration of graves at several cemeteries in Nizhny Novgorod beginning in 2010, police spokeswoman Svetlana Kovalina said. She did not explain how they tracked him down. The national daily Moskovsky Komsomolets said Moskvin was detained at a cemetery while carrying a bag of bones. But Kriminalная Chronika, an online publication specializing in crime news from the Nizhny Novgorod region, said police investigators discovered the bodies when they visited Moskvin to consult with him about the desecration. Moskvin faced suspicion of desecrating up to 150 graves, as revealed by the police who discovered grave-related items, including metal nameplates taken from headstones. The findings included instructions for creating the dolls, cemetery maps in the region, and a collection of photos and videos showcasing open graves and exhumed bodies. However, there was no conclusive evidence linking this material to any of the bodies found in his apartment. The investigation indicated that the bodies primarily originated from cemeteries in the Nizhny Novgorod region, with some potentially sourced from as far as Moscow. Moskvin cooperated actively with investigators and asserted that he had crafted the dolls for over a decade. Surprisingly, his parents, often away for extended periods, were unaware of his activities. Elvira, the professor's then 76-year-old mom, said, "We saw these dolls, but we did not suspect there were dead bodies inside. We thought it was his hobby to make such big dolls and did not see anything wrong with it." During the trial, there was a stark divide among the families of the girls Moskvin had mummified. Some demanded life imprisonment, while others called for the death penalty. Ultimately, neither the prosecution nor the defense appealed the outcome. The judge ordered Moskvin to pay approximately $75,000 for moral damages to the families of each child. Surprisingly, one family, admitting guilt, refused the money, stating, "He treated her better than we ever did." This divergence in opinions observed during the trial reflects a broader sentiment in Russia, influencing the ongoing events surrounding Moskvin's incarceration. In June 2015, Moskvin sought an extension of his stay in the psychiatric hospital for 6 more months. Given the high-profile nature of his case, he acquired a prominent lawyer, Violetta Volkova. Reports indicated that Moskvin faced regular beatings from guards and fellow patients. Despite family visits, his mother claimed he was heavily medicated, making him unable to write and in a sedated state. Volkova demanded his transfer to an independent clinic in Moscow, expressing distrust in the current facility. While Moskvin's mistreatment in the clinic is public knowledge, his parents are reluctant to see him released for his crimes. Ironically, Anatoly, despite his poor treatment, seems unaware of the deep trauma Moskvin inflicted on families and victims. Currently, Moskvin is striving for release to care for his mother and a mysterious new bride. Moskvin faced charges under Article 244 of the Criminal Code about the desecration of graves and dead bodies, a potential sentence of up to 5 years. Initially, he was also accused of defacing the graves of Muslims, deemed a hate crime, but this charge was later dropped. What are your thoughts on this story? Did the judge order Moskvin to pay compensation for moral damages to the families of each child? Do you believe this type of compensation is appropriate in such cases? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to follow for more crime stories.